Good afternoon. Well, this is the second part of the Spark the Change conference, this one that we had earlier today with Helen Walton. At this point, I have Geoff McDonald, who is the Global VP of HR for Unilever, and we're going to talk some more about what he's going to be talking about in the Spark the Change conference, and also just what Unilever is doing in terms of exploring innovative different approaches to management. Geoff has got an incredible background. He's got 25 years with Unilever. He's active, marathoner, makes a difference, is out there doing important and big things, including reviving hope in places where hope's been lost, which I think is incredibly exciting. So, Geoff, I want to turn it over to you, and let's just jump right in. We've got 15 minutes. Let's just jump right in with what's Unilever doing differently now that it hasn't been doing before.
Yeah, look, I think what Unilever, I don't think it's different, but I think what's happened is we have really resurrected our purpose as an organization. So 100 years ago, we had a purpose which was all about making cleanliness commonplace in the world. We've resurrected that purpose to address the issues that the world faces right now. You know, there'll be 9 billion people on this planet in 2050. Currently, the planet is using 1.5 times the capacity of resource that it has. You know, there are 1 billion children who go to bed hungry every night. There are 83 individuals in the world whose total income is the same as 3.5 billion people at the lower end of the pyramid. I mean, that just can't be right. You know, there are probably as I said to you, something like 163 million children that are stunted by the age of 5 because of malnutrition. Now, capitalism has done a lot of good in the world, but where it is right now, and with some of those statistics that I give you, it can't be right the way we are running businesses in the world today. To have 83 people's worth, the same as 3.5 billion people, to have the kinds of disasters that we're seeing all over the world, whether it's Haiti, whether it's recently the Philippines, whether it's the overthrow of the Egyptian government caused by inequality and food prices due to droughts. I mean, all of these things are hitting us right now. And if we are going to have 9 billion people living on the planet in 2050, in a more sustainable way, then I think we've got to do business very, very differently. And that's the challenge that Unilever has taken on. The challenge is, how do we make sustainable living commonplace in the world? How do we really work much closer with governments, with NGOs, with social enterprises, with other organizations, and collaborate in a way that we're able to meet these challenges? And it's only if we meet these challenges that we are going to grow and prosper. So if I just give you an example, there are a billion people who are overweight. We're in the foods business. You know, what's an opportunity for us? There are a billion people, as I say, who go to bed hungry every night. We're in the foods business. You know, 2/3 of the land mass by 2035 will be water scarce. You need lots of water to use our products. You know, what's going to happen in 2035 if there's not much water around? So this is not about philanthropy. This is not about creating a good reputation. This is about real business, and hard business, I think, in looking forward and seeing what are these issues and how can these issues become real opportunities whereby we can provide food to 1 billion kids so that they don't go to bed hungry every night. And as a result of that, we'll grow, we'll prosper, and we'll be around in another 150 years and hopefully making a really, really positive impact on both the environment and the social challenges that we face. So that's our big challenge, and that's the new way in which we are really trying to do business. To do business where our purpose, it is our purpose that drives profit, not profit driving purpose.
Nice distinction. Now, in terms of making the shift and resurrecting purpose and that putting front and center, how has that changed your decision-making process, and how has that changed how you work, how you get work done internally?
Well, I think what it's done is, I mean, in order to try and achieve this lofty ambition that we have, which is, as Unilever, we want to double the size of our business, but at the same time enhance our social impact, and reduce our environmental impact. And that's required. That really has required us to think very differently about how we go about doing business. And so therefore, there are two big levers that we've pulled, which will really begin to influence the way in which we make decisions. The first one is really building the levels of what I call leadership, engagement, and advocacy to this new way of doing business. Because it's only if leaders are engaged and they are advocates for this new way of doing business, will they think differently and will they make different decisions. If they are just aware of it and understand it, then I think that it's a little bit like, there are lots of people who still smoke. We all know that smoking's not good for us, but there are lots of people who still smoke. Yes, we are aware of it, we understand it, but we haven't engaged in stopping smoking, or we haven't become advocates to stop smoking. And once you become an advocate, then you make very different decisions around whether you smoke or don't smoke or what you think about smoking. And the same applies in this business context. So it's been really important for us to try and get a critical mass of leaders in our business who are fully engaged and are advocates for this new way of doing business. The second thing that I think we've had to do, if we really want to change the decision-making in the organization, is we have to take that purpose that we have and really hardwire it into the infrastructure of the organization. So let me give you an example. If we do not hardwire and look at our infrastructure through the lens of making sustainable living commonplace, we could make a decision to acquire a company that doesn't meet that purpose. But by hardwiring sustainable living into our acquisition process, into our acquisition systems, that has forced us to look for companies that we might acquire, or even some of the other companies we've had, which we need to dispose of. But why are we disposing of them? Because they don't align to our purpose. Now, if we hadn't hardwired our thinking around making sustainable living commonplace, then we would make different decisions. I mean, another example would be building a strategy for Europe. The strategy review process, if sustainable living is not hardwired into that, you'll make decisions that are not aligned to the overall purpose. And so I think the two things have been, one, really trying to drive our engagement of our leaders and getting them to become advocates for this new way of doing business, and then very importantly, beginning to hardwire, look at every one of our processes, the infrastructure, through the lens of making sustainable living commonplace.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Now, I know one of the gaps that exists between executives and their employees, and in the case of Unilever, 170,000 employees, is about sharing vision and getting people's heads wrapped around what that vision is. How has this new approach, what does this new approach you're taking do to achieve that goal and to close that gap in the vision?
Well, 4 years ago, when Paul Polman became the CEO of Unilever, he created a very, very ambitious goal for Unilever. A little bit like, Kennedy decided he wanted to put a man on the moon. Nobody knew how he was going to do that. Paul did the exact same thing. He came in and he said, look, I want to double the size of this business. It was 40 billion. He says, we've got to try and get it to 80 billion, and at the same time, reduce our environmental impact and enhance our social impact. We didn't know how we would do that. We didn't know how we would achieve it. But that vision, behind that vision, we created 4 big strategic goals that we thought would help us to get to that vision. That one was all about our brands and how would we be able to do this through our brands. The other one was how would we manage our costs. The other one was how would we better manage and inspire our people around this vision. And the other one was all around continuous improvement. And getting and improving our ability to execute in the marketplace. And then what we did was we took that vision and we cascaded that vision to 170,000 people across Unilever. So we had 400 leaders come together, and those 400 leaders were then charged with going out and cascading that vision and ambition and the key enablers to that vision to 170,000 people. In addition, what we did was we went external and we told the external world that this is what we want to try and achieve. And I think that puts real skin in the game when you go external and when you also go internal. And so employees read about it in newspapers, they read about it through all the communication materials, and in that way we were able to at least communicate and, I would say, make our employees aware and understand what we were trying to go after. The only way then that you fully engage those beyond just awareness and understanding is through what I was saying just now, by changing the processes and the systems, because it's those things that employees use every single day. I use a performance management system every day, or I learn to switch on a machine as an operator in a factory, or I'm responsible for the recycling of waste in the factory, and making sure that those systems aligned again to our purpose. So having these leaders engaged in this infrastructure, I come back to that all the time, together with a very powerful communication vehicle to get to those 170,000 employees. And then finally, we decided that the only way in which we would achieve this ambition would be through our brands, our products, our services, not through corporate social responsibility. So we did a very symbolic thing. We closed down corporate social responsibility. I closed the function down. And we said, no, if we're going to do this properly, it has to live in our brands. And it's going to be through our brands that we will begin to deal with the environmental and social opportunities that they provide. So, for example, a brand like Lifebuoy, has a social mission now about getting rid of, reducing the incidence of diarrhea in the developing world. I mean, this is a preventable disease. You just got to teach children to wash their hands after going to the toilet. Or take a brand like Dove, which is a social mission, which is all about enhancing the self-esteem of women. And so you can see how we've begun to build the social ambition together with the environmental ambition through the brands as appropriate, and not through some corporate social responsibility department.
Excellent. Now tell me about, you've talked about implementation, you've talked about how you've diffused it down into the organization. In making the jump from where you were before, resurrecting this purpose and bringing it forward, what kinds of mindset thinking shifts did you witness take place amongst management at the top levels?
Look, I think that the most important, and I think we still, to some extent, are struggling to get this mindset shift. And I think probably there are probably two or three. The first one is this realization that we can no longer rely on what I call capitalism 1.0. So a mindset shift which says we are going to have to do capitalism in a different way. Capitalism that is driven by the social and environmental needs in the world. And by going after that, we will grow and we will be profitable. And so therefore this move away from our current thinking around capitalism to a different view of capitalism. And that view of capitalism, and in order to achieve that, requires significant collaboration and partnering. And so therefore a mindset to move away from, oh, Unilever will solve the world's problems on our own, or we can live in our little cocoon, to know the only way we're going to do this is by partnering and collaborating with NGOs, with governments, with other organizations, with social enterprise. So that's mindset number one. I think mindset number two is, in our everyday living, particularly of those people in the developed world, I think we all still live in a wonderful cocoon. We switch on the tap and there's hot water. We switch the light on and the lights come on. We get into our nice fancy motor cars and life seems to go along quite well. And so how do we build an understanding, that the capacity that the world has is we're being overstretched. How do we get people to understand that the Egyptian government, which was overthrown in 17 days, came about as a result of a social issue and an environmental issue? The social issue was inequality, the environmental issue was drought and food prices going through the roof. And that led to the overthrow of the government. So getting people out of their comfort zone, and creating a new mindset around the role that business has got to play in addressing those issues. And then the last mindset shift, Dawna, I think was, how do you take this concept of doing good in the world, which was always seemed to be corporate social responsibility, and this is about your brand and building a good reputation, and saying, no, it is about, that is going to be the enabler to us being profitable and growing in the future. It's only if we go after innovating a washing soap that requires less water that we will be profitable and grow in the future. You know, so it's seeing these goals that we have around social and environmental challenges, seeing those as enablers to growth and profitability, rather than some separate CSR activity or some separate reputation building and enhancing activity, and now an enabler to growth and profitability. So for me, those would be the three big mindset shifts that had to take place, and that continue to be an issue for us, and that we got to continue to work on that in moving people from an area of awareness and understanding to real engagement and advocacy.
Yeah, definitely. It's an experimentation process, no question.
Yeah.
Now, what attracted you to participate in Spark the Change coming up in July 4th, 5th in London? What attracted you to that?
Well, I'll tell you, I have become a bit of a zealot. I've become very passionate about the role that business has to play in society as we move into the 21st and 22nd centuries. And, you know, I have over the last 4 years been very privileged to work under the, under the leadership of a guy like Paul Polman, who I think has been very visionary in his views on where capitalism is going, his views on how businesses should be run. And over those 4 years, you know, I've learned a tremendous amount about how do you really begin to embed this concept of purpose in your organization, such that profit follows purpose. And I think, you know, I want to start sharing that. I want to start sharing those learnings with other organizations, with other institutions, because as I said earlier, Unilever won't solve the world on its own. And the more purposeful businesses we can create, the better. And I think it was for that reason that I chose to participate in this conference and get involved in it. I think it's in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah.
Yeah, July 4th, 5th. Geoff, I want to thank you for participating in this. I'm going to ask folks to pop over to see the conference, which is sparkthechange.co.uk. You'll find information on the conference there. I'll hold that up a bit longer for those of you that didn't see that. But it's also on the website, and you'll see that around. And again, thank you. Please follow my work, if you would. Follow at EP Dawna Jones on Twitter, or just patch onto the website. That way you'll keep in touch. We'll be doing another program like this in June that I introduced in the last interview with Helen, except I got the dates wrong. So I'll be coming back to you with some correct dates. And Geoff, you've been an angel. Thank you very much for working your day around pulling this off so everybody could hear what you had to say. Appreciate it.
Thank you.